Okay, hello everyone. My name's Ryan, and today I'm going to be talking about full stack alignment, or why alignment means creating what I call AGI-ready institutions. And one of the kind of premises of this work is the project that we in this room are kind of collectively engaged in is not really the project of aligning an AGI singleton, but it's instead aligning a society of AGIs and humans. And what that means is it requires a kind of shift in our research portfolio. And so in this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about what this research might look like. But first, kind of why might that be true? Well, first of all, just kind of empirically, we're seeing that this kind of like multi-agent world is the world that we're living in. You know, we have millions of agents going around and doing stuff. Some of them have bank accounts, crypto accounts. They can buy stuff. And each of these agents is aligned in general to a different principle. So some aligned to different users, different companies, and so forth. And essentially what we're doing is we're building a society of AGI or AI agents before we have any of the kind of coordination infrastructure that makes society work. And that seems bad. We should do something about that. More specifically, many of the societal harms are not always predictable from the behavior of individual agents. And even if we were to solve the AGI singleton problem, there's still the incentive to build unaligned AGIs. So you can imagine a company building a very addictive chatbot, or maybe you can imagine theoretically some kind of nation using a model for mass surveillance. These are all things that are important to think about. And of course, there's many other people who've been thinking about this and making this case, going back at least to Drexler. There's a paper later that'll be presented by Mattia that kind of makes a similar case. Okay, so that's kind of like the background. Now, how do we do it? Maybe it seems hard, and that's why we haven't been thinking about it so much. So I talked about coordination infrastructure. So in human societies, that looks like, we call those institutions. So institutions are kind of the rules, norms, and mechanisms that structure how people interact. And so when I say this, many people in this room might be thinking of governance and regulation and so forth. And these are important, but they're kind of only a small slice of the kinds of institutions that humans use to align human societies. And this is the a slightly more comprehensive view. This is the grid of existing human institutions. So in this grid, the rows are kind of like the scale of institution, and the columns are kind of different types of institutions, which use different kinds of information and also require different kinds of expertise. For example, in the incentives column, there's expertise in kind of mechanism design that's really relevant. If you're looking at institutions that deal with preferences, we might consider auction design, electoral system design, and so forth. Regulation is here. It's kind of like in the bottom kind of middle sections. But there's a lot of other examples. So, for example, there's global markets, courts and judiciaries, mission-driven organizations. So lots of ways that humans align, human societies. And of course, these institutions are imperfect, but they've kind of been like, more or less good enough for aligning humans so far, making society kind of work all right. But there's a problem, which is these are not going to be good enough for a world with AGIs that are agents and kind of going around and doing stuff. In particular, they were built for a world with human participants who are, compared to AI systems, slow and mediocre at optimization. If we take regulation as an example, regulation can be extremely useful, but it's kind of like a reactive kind of approach. It kind of sets constraints on the behavior of actors after we've noticed some problem. And a world where AI agents are kind of going around creating new problems much faster than we can regulate, we need to do something kind of differently. So, for example, we can imagine mechanisms where good outcomes are kind of like the natural equilibrium that emerge from the interaction of these agents. And, so we kind of need like, as one example of a kind of richer toolbox of approaches that we might want to bring to bear on this question of aligning a society of AGIs and humans. So more generally, I might say, we need a kind of analogous grid to this world of AGIs and humans. And, the rows and the columns are the same, but here are some kind of examples we've pre-populated of some of the kinds of things we might need. So, for example, we might need AI commons management, because if you have a million agents going around using the same information infrastructure, that might cause pollution, and we're starting to see that some of that already. We might need AI adjudication, so there might be disputes between agents that we need to resolve fairly, but much quicker than a human judge is able to do. And more generally, we just need different kinds of incentive structures to ensure that the kinds of stuff that agents are doing actually benefit people. And of course, there's a lot of empty cells. This is still kind of like an open research agenda. Some of these institutions will look quite a bit maybe like the previous grid. Some of them will be totally entirely new. But my claim is this is the kind of work that we need to be doing, or someone needs to be doing. But there's good news. And the good news is that it turns out we believe that language models kind of open up a new design space for building some of the institutions that we might need. So I'm going to give quickly in this talk one example in the context of markets. So markets are great, obviously, but there's markets for things we don't need, and there's markets for things that make our lives worse. And as agents get more powerful, they're increasingly going to be able to exploit these kinds of things. And so what we want is some kind of way to ensure that as agents get more powerful, markets remain tethered to human well-being, right? So my colleagues, Joe and Oliver, wrote a kind of specific proposal for one way we might do this, which they call market intermediaries. And the basic idea is something like this. So right now, if you buy a product or service, the contract is based on deliverables. So whether you got the thing that you paid for, and not on outcomes, which is, did the thing actually benefit you? So for example, if you ask the question, did this therapy app I use actually improve my mental health? There's no market mechanism right now that kind of asks that question. So the reason for this essentially is because doing this in an automated way at scale historically has been prohibitively expensive, right? But the cool thing is it's possible that language models might actually change this. So we might actually be able to create systems that assess whether some kind of service actually satisfies someone's deeper needs. And then what we can do is we can pay sellers more who, help benefit people in a certain kind of way. There's a lot more technical details. And sellers who don't actually help people in the way that they wanted get paid less. So I think this is one of the coolest ideas out there. So I highly recommend checking it out. Checking out the blog post if you haven't yet. Or of course, talking to Joe and Oliver who are here. But the more general takeaway is many of the institutions that we've designed for human societies were basically designed with constraints that are no longer true. And that constraint was that language-based judgment is really expensive and really slow. And now if we have language models, there is potentially a whole new space of creativity that opens up in our capacity to design institutions, which we're going to need to do to solve some of the challenges that we're going to be facing. So to conclude, let's fill out this grid. We're going to need technical work. So there's going to be work on AI normative competence, value alignment, making sure the language models are actually like robust and working well in the ways we need them to work well. But we're going to need to collaborate with, mechanism designers, lawyers, all kinds of people, right? And there's some new work in progress that we're working on this. Our most recent kind of published work is at fullstackalignment.ai. And the thought I want to conclude with is this. So, you might look at this grid and think like, oh wow, this seems really intimidating. How could we possibly do this? And I think that's fair. But also, I think part of the reason we believe that is because we kind of take our existing institutions for granted, right? It seems like they've been there forever. But that's not actually true. We invented them. We made them. And many of them have been invented in the last couple hundred years. So we do have agency here, basically. There is a space of optionality, a space of agency, of creativity that we can bring to bear on this problem. Thank you.